Hey, what's up, everybody? If you're enjoying the video, please hit that subscribe button and give a thumbs up. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. It really helps support the channel and allows me to keep creating content for you guys.
My name is Minji and I once believed in fairy tales. 6 months ago, I stood in a white dress, surrounded by cherry blossoms, looking into Ji-hoon's eyes as he promised to love me forever. His gentle smile, the way he held my hand like it was made of glass. I thought I knew him. 3 years of dating, of late-night phone calls, of him bringing me soup when I was sick. Thought I knew him. The wedding was perfect. His family welcomed me with open arms. His mother even called me daughter as she embraced me. His father toasted to our happiness, and his sister whispered how lucky they were to have me join their family. I remember the exact moment when the first crack appeared in my perfect world. It was 2 weeks after we returned from our honeymoon in Jeju Island. I was unpacking the last of my belongings in our new apartment when I found a small leather-bound notebook tucked between Ji-hoon's sweaters. Inside were meticulous notes about me, what time I woke up, what I ate for breakfast, how long I spent on my phone, how often I called my parents. There were even calculations of how much money I spent each month before we were married. "What is this?" I asked when he came home that evening, holding the notebook with trembling hands. His face changed then, just for a second, before settling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just some notes I kept while we were dating. I wanted to learn everything about you to be the perfect husband." I laughed it off. Told myself it was sweet even if a little strange. But that night as he slept beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That the man breathing softly next to me was somehow not the same man I had fallen in love with. I was right. The changes were subtle at first. Ji-hoon started calling me throughout the day. Innocent check-ins that gradually became interrogations. "Who were you talking to just now? Why did it take you so long at the grocery store? Why is dinner not ready yet?" Within a month he had opinions about everything. My clothes, my makeup, my friends. "That skirt is too short for a married woman," he would say, his voice calm but his eyes cold. "I don't think Soo-young is a good influence on you. She's too wild, too independent." One by one my friends stopped calling. Or rather, I stopped answering. It was easier than explaining why I couldn't meet them for coffee, why I couldn't stay out past 6, why there was always a reason Ji-hoon needed me at home. His mother, who had been so warm at the wedding, revealed her true nature during her weekly visits. "A proper wife should have dinner ready when her husband comes home," she would say, inspecting the apartment with critical eyes. "Your mother never taught you how to properly fold men's shirts, did she? Let me show you." Ji-hoon never defended me. Instead, he would nod along, watching as his mother critiqued every aspect of my housekeeping, my cooking, my appearance. "Listen to her, Min," he would say. "My mother raised 3 children and kept an immaculate home. You could learn from her." 3 months into our marriage, Ji-hoon suggested I quit my job at the publishing house. "You're always so tired from work," he said, stroking my hair in a gesture that once brought comfort but now felt like ownership. "I make enough money for both of us. You can focus on making our home perfect." I refused. My job was the last piece of my identity I had left. The next day my boss called me into his office. "I'm sorry, Minji, but we have to let you go. Budget cuts." Later, I overheard him on the phone. "Yes, Mr. Park, it's done. As we discussed. Ji-hoon had arranged for me to be fired." When confronted, he didn't even deny it. "It's for the best, Minji. Now you can be a proper wife." Without my income, I became entirely dependent on him. He gave me a weekly allowance, barely enough for groceries and household items. When I asked for money to buy new clothes or meet a friend for lunch, he would interrogate me about every detail before reluctantly handing over a few bills, making me feel like a beggar. "Why do you need new clothes? No one sees you but me," he would say. Or worse, "Who exactly are you trying to impress?" My phone started disappearing. Left at his mother's house, accidentally dropped in water, mysteriously broken. Each time, Ji-hoon would replace it with a simpler model until finally I had a basic phone that could only call and text, which he checked nightly. "For your safety," he insisted. "There are so many scammers targeting housewives these days." 6 months into our marriage, on our half-anniversary, I discovered the truth. Ji-hoon had left his laptop open when he went to shower. A notification popped up, an email from his father. "Son, I'm proud of how well you've implemented our family's traditions. Your grandfather would be pleased to see how you've trained your wife, just as I trained your mother, and he trained my mother before her. Remember, a woman needs a firm hand to shape her into a proper Park family wife. Your brother is getting engaged next month. Make sure Minji is ready to help with the wedding preparations. She needs to show the family she has been properly molded. My hands shook as I scrolled through the email chain. There were years of exchanges. Instructions from father to son about how to break a wife's independence, how to isolate her from friends and family, how to create financial dependence. There were even spreadsheets ranking the female members of the Park family by obedience and usefulness. My name was at the bottom with a note, "Work in progress. Shows resistance." When Ji-hoon returned from his shower, he found me sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. The laptop was closed exactly as he had left it. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice dripping with false concern. "Nothing," I whispered, feeling something inside me crack. "Just tired." That night as he slept, I lay awake, planning my escape. I became the perfect wife. I woke up at 5 a.m. to prepare Ji-hoon's breakfast. I cleaned the apartment until it gleamed. I learned his mother's recipes and followed them to the letter. I never complained, never questioned, never showed a hint of resistance. "You've finally adjusted," his mother said approvingly during one of her inspections. Ji-hoon was worried he'd chosen poorly, but I told him to be patient. Ji-hoon relaxed his guard. The constant calls decreased. He allowed me to visit the local market alone. He even let me have lunch with Soo-young once a month, after calling her to explain what time I should be home. All the while I was gathering information. Every time I served tea to Ji-hoon and his father, I listened. Every time his mother complained about other family members, I remembered. Every family gathering became an intelligence mission. I learned about the Park family business, a supposedly respectable real estate company that specialized in forcing elderly people out of their homes through intimidation and forgery. I discovered financial records showing millions embezzled from company accounts. I found photographs of Ji-hoon with other women, taken during our engagement, our marriage. And I found others like me, the wives of Ji-hoon's cousins, his uncles, all with the same empty eyes and practiced smiles. During family gatherings we worked together in the kitchen, hardly speaking above a whisper. But in those whispers I found allies. My husband locked me in the apartment for a week when I visited my sister without permission, whispered Jimin, the wife of Ji-hoon's cousin. "I haven't spoken to my parents in 3 years, murmured Hyejin, married to Ji-hoon's older brother. "They think I'm too busy with the children. They don't know I'm not allowed to call them." 1 year into my marriage, I was trusted enough to serve drinks at an important family business meeting. As I poured tea for Ji-hoon's father, he patted my hand approvingly. "You've done well with this one, Ji-hoon. Remember how she used to talk back? Now look at her, silent and obedient as a wife should be." The men laughed. Ji-hoon beamed with pride. "It just takes time and consistency, father. Break them down piece by piece and you can rebuild them how you want." That night, after Ji-hoon fell asleep, I took his phone and forwarded all the emails between him and his father to my secret email account, one I had created using the computer at the public library. I took photographs of financial records, of the notebook I had found on our first day of marriage, of the spreadsheets ranking the family wives. The next morning I served Ji-hoon his favorite breakfast. As he ate, I stood beside him as was expected. "Ji-hoon," I said softly, "I've been thinking about having a baby." His chopsticks paused halfway to his mouth. "Really? You're finally ready to fulfill your duty as a wife?" I nodded, lowering my eyes submissively. "I think it's time. Your mother mentioned yesterday that we've been married over a year now, and people are starting to talk." He smiled, that same cold smile I had come to dread. "I'll call Dr. Kim today. He's a family friend, he'll make sure everything is in order." That afternoon, Ji-hoon took me to Dr. Kim's private clinic. As Ji-hoon waited in the reception area, Dr. Kim led me to an examination room. "Mrs. Park," he said, closing the door, "your husband has asked me to remove your contraceptive implant. He says you've been hiding it from him." I stared at him, my heart pounding. I had gotten the implant before the wedding, a secret precaution I had kept from Ji-hoon. How did he know? I whispered. Dr. Kim looked uncomfortable. "Your mother-in-law called me months ago to ask if you had been to see me." Patient confidentiality doesn't mean much when your family owns half the businesses in this district. In that sterile office, with its diagrams of female anatomy on the walls and the scent of disinfectant burning my nostrils, something inside me finally broke. I want a divorce, I said, my voice strange and hollow even to my own ears. Dr. Kim's eyes widened. Mrs. Park, please lower your voice. Your husband is just outside. I don't care, I said, standing up. I've spent the past year being systematically destroyed by that man and his family. I've been isolated, manipulated, and treated like property. And now he wants to trap me forever with a child. Dr. Kim looked nervously at the door. Mrs. Park, please understand the Park family is very powerful. Many women in your situation have tried to leave. It never ends well. What do you mean? I demanded, gripping the edge of the examination table. Dr. Kim sighed, suddenly looking old and tired. 3 years ago, another Park wife, married to one of the cousins, tried to leave. She was committed to a psychiatric facility. She's still there, heavily medicated. The family claimed she had a psychotic break. I felt cold all over. And you did nothing? You're a doctor. I'm a doctor who wants to keep practicing, he said quietly. The Park family can destroy anyone they choose. As I walked out of the examination room, Ji-hoon stood up, smiling. How did it go? When can we start trying? I said nothing as we drove home. In my mind, I was no longer there. I was already gone. That night, after dinner with his parents, where they discussed my future children as if they were planning a business acquisition, Ji-hoon and I returned home. As I washed the dishes, he came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. My mother is very pleased with you, he murmured, kissing my neck. She thinks you'll give me strong sons. Something snapped inside me. The plate I was washing crashed into the sink, breaking into jagged pieces. I am not your property, I said, turning to face him. I am not a broodmare for the Park family. I know everything, Ji-hoon. The emails between you and your father. The family business. The other women. His face changed, all pretense of affection vanishing. You went through my emails? My private correspondence with my father. He grabbed my wrist, squeezing until I gasped with pain. Who have you told? Who knows? Everyone will know, I said, wrenching my arm free. Every email, every picture, every financial record. I have copies of all of it. One call from me and it all goes to the police, to the press, to everyone you've ever cheated or stolen from. Ji-hoon's face contorted with rage. You stupid, ungrateful woman. Do you have any idea what I can do to you? What my family can do? I do, I said, backing away from him. Your father can have me committed like that poor woman 3 years ago. You can destroy my reputation, take everything from me. But I don't care anymore, Ji-hoon. I'd rather be destroyed completely than live one more day as your perfect, obedient wife. He lunged for me then, but I was ready. The broken plate was in my hand, a jagged edge pointed at him. Don't touch me, I hissed. Don't ever touch me again. For the first time since I had known him, Ji-hoon looked afraid. Minji, let's talk about this reasonably. You're upset, I understand. But think about what you're doing. Think about your future. I am thinking about my future, I said. A future without you in it. I left that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and my secret phone. Soo-young took me in without question, hiding me in her apartment while I put my plan into action. First, I contacted the other Park wives, using burner phones and secret meetings in public places. Many were too afraid to help, but a few, including Hyejin and Jimin, had reached their breaking points as well. Together we compiled evidence, financial records, emails, photographs, testimonies. We contacted a journalist known for exposing corruption among the elite. We met with a prosecutor who specialized in organized crime. 3 weeks after I left Ji-hoon, the story broke. Park family empire built on fraud and abuse, screamed the headlines. The business empire began to crumble as clients fled and investigations were launched. Ji-hoon's father suffered a stroke when the police arrived at his door with a warrant. Ji-hoon himself was arrested for financial crimes and harassment. As he was led away in handcuffs, our eyes met across the courthouse lobby. The hatred in his gaze would have once terrified me. Now I felt nothing but pity. My divorce was finalized expeditiously with the judge, a woman, awarding me a settlement that ensured I would never want for anything again. The Park family's reputation was in tatters. their power broken. I started a foundation to help women trapped in abusive marriages, using my experience and resources to create escape plans, provide legal aid and offer temporary housing. Ji-hoon and Ji-min joined me, along with other women who had suffered similar fates. 6 months after my escape, as I was leaving the foundation office late one evening, my phone rang, an unknown number. Min-ji. Ji-hoon's voice. Softer than I remembered. Please don't hang up. I should have ended the call immediately. Instead I asked, what do you want? To apologize, he said. I've had time to think in here. What I did to you, what my family taught me to do, it was wrong. I see that now. I said nothing, waiting. I'm getting help, he continued. Therapy. Anger management. I'm learning about respect, about equality. I want to make amends. There are no amends to be made, Ji-hoon. What's done is done. Can I see you? Just once. I want to apologize properly, face to face. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse. But some small foolish part of me, the part that had once loved the man I thought he was, whispered that people can change. I agreed to meet him in a public cafe, near the courthouse, during his supervised release for a hearing. I arrived early, choosing a table with a clear view of the door and the street beyond. Ji-hoon entered precisely on time. He looked thinner, paler, but his eyes, when they met mine, seemed clearer somehow. Gone was the cold calculation, replaced by what appeared to be genuine remorse. Min-ji, he said, sitting down across from me. Thank you for coming. For an hour he talked. About his childhood, growing up under his father's tyrannical rule. About the expectations placed on Park men to control their wives, to continue the family legacy of dominance. About the therapy he was undergoing, the realizations he had come to about the cycle of abuse. I don't expect forgiveness, he said finally. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you didn't just save yourself when you left. You saved me too. From becoming my father. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, of the old Ji-hoon beneath this new facade. I found none, or perhaps I simply couldn't see them anymore. I wish you well, Ji-hoon, I said, standing to leave. I hope you find peace. He reached for my hand, his touch light. There's one more thing. My grandmother, my father's mother, she wants to meet you. She's been following your foundation's work. She says she lived the same life you escaped but never had the courage to leave. Again caution warred with curiosity. Again curiosity won. The following Sunday I found myself at a small nursing home on the outskirts of Seoul. Ji-hoon's grandmother, Park Soon-ja, was 93 years old, her body frail but her mind still sharp. So you're the woman who brought down the Park men, she said, her voice reedy but strong. Good. It was long overdue. For hours she told me stories. Of her marriage at 16 to a man 30 years her senior. Of the training she endured. Of watching her son, Ji-hoon's father, learn from his father how to break a woman's spirit. I tried to protect my grandson, she said, clutching my hand. I tried to show him a different way. But my son's influence was too strong. As the afternoon light faded, a nurse came to take Soon-ja to dinner. As I rose to leave, the old woman gripped my wrist with surprising strength. Be careful, child, she whispered. The Park men never forgive and they never forget. Ji-hoon is his father's son, no matter what he tells you now. I left the nursing home unsettled, her warning echoing in my mind. 2 days later, Soon-ja passed away peacefully in her sleep. Ji-hoon called to tell me, his voice thick with grief. She left something for you, he said. A letter. Can I bring it to you? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at my apartment. Soo-young insisted on staying with me, waiting in the bedroom while I received Ji-hoon at the door. He handed me a sealed envelope, his eyes red-rimmed. I haven't read it, he said. It was her last wish that this go directly to you. I opened the envelope after he left. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the handwriting shaky but legible. Min-ji, if you are reading this, I am gone. My grandson brought you to me as I expected he would. I have been watching. The therapy, the remorse, the new Ji-hoon, it's all an act. After you left the nursing home, he came to me boasting of how easily you believed his transformation. The Park men are patient, Min-ji. They can wait years for revenge. This is my final act of rebellion against the family that imprisoned me for 77 years. Run. Run now. My hands shook as I read the letter a second time, then a third. I called Soo-young from the bedroom, showing her what Soonja had written. "We need to leave," Soo-young said immediately. "Tonight." As we packed hastily, my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your tea." The jasmine tea Ji-hoon had handed me when he arrived. A peace offering, he'd called it. I had taken only a few sips before setting it aside. Within an hour my vision began to blur. My limbs felt heavy. Soo-young called an ambulance as I collapsed on the kitchen floor. The doctors later told me the poison was slow-acting and nearly undetectable, a specialty of the Park family businesses apparently. Had I drunk the entire cup I would have died in my sleep, the cause ruled as heart failure. As I recovered in the hospital, news came that Ji-hoon had fled the country. His supervised release had been part of the plan all along. A chance to silence me permanently before escaping justice. The foundation hired security for me, for Hyejin and Jimin, for all the women who had stood against the Park family. We continued our work, but now with the knowledge that we would always be looking over our shoulders. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I dream of the woman I was before, hopeful, trusting, in love with a man who never existed. I grieve for her, for the life she thought she would have. But then I wake and I remember the women we've helped, the lives we've saved, the chains we've broken. And I know that despite everything, despite the fear that never quite leaves me, I would do it all again. Because some nightmares need to be lived through to save others from the same fate. Because some dreams, once shattered, reveal the truth that was hiding beneath the fairy tale all along.